Welcome, everyone, to the Contact Center Perspectives podcast. I'm Steve McDonald, your host. And we have a very special guest on today, Lauren Volpe. Lauren, you're not only a Chief Customer Experience Officer, but you're sharing with you a point of view that every single one of us need. It doesn't come from your background as a golfer, although that's interesting to know. But
No.
we talked just over our last few conversations here. You've said things that are just incredibly important. You can get lost in that bill, right? You look every month at the cost of the contact center, the CEO, the CFO, everybody's looking at it. You're thinking, how do we reduce cost? How do we reduce cost? But if we could change our perspective and say, you know what? If we had a process where every dollar we put in, we got $1.50 or $1.75 back, we'd do it all day long, right? What you're going to talk about today is creating contact centers that directly impact company performance. So no longer should they be looked upon as, well, this is a cost to contain, right? This is a
Right.
value add in a big way to our organization. So I love you said a couple other things that could be looked upon as like a black hole, right? But if there was ever a place to invest in your business, wouldn't it be with your customers? Wouldn't it be a conversation you're having with your customers, the experience that your customers are having with you? So if you look at it from that perspective, there's not one member of a board anywhere that would say, no, I don't want to invest in my customers. Yet you've got a whole contact center that you're constantly trying to reduce cost on. And that has ramifications that can go in the wrong direction. But before we get into that kind of a conversation, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about your backgrounds and then we'll get right into it.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I know it's probably weird to be excited about talking about contact centers, but I can't help it. That's my jam. I've been doing customer experience for pretty much my entire career, even like way, way, way back, paper route, babysitting, always made sure I had the best crayons and best coloring books and things. That was the early beginnings of understanding how important having happy customers was. And maybe early net promoter or CSAT really meant a lot and customer lifetime value. I didn't have to go scrounging around to get those new customers because I had really good, happy customers who were probably telling the whole neighborhood about me, how great I was. I have a tremendous amount of empathy for customers. And when I say customers, I'm not just talking about people who are using my product or my services. I'm also talking about my agents. I want my agents to work for me. And I want them to know that they're working for a brand and a company that really cares about them and views them as the arm, probably the only arm that is actually touching a customer. And we have to trust them. Like we really have to put a lot of trust and energy into making sure that they have the best tools and the best training. That's what I focus on every day.
Well, that's a perfect segue into what we want to talk about. And starting out with the agents, I think is perfect because in the past you said agents, they see the AI trend, they're worried about their job. Yet we want to make sure that they also, on the other hand, they understand how important they are to the organization. And that it's almost criminal that sometimes we look at things, acceptable levels of underperformance like agent turnover. That's just a reality. We just got to deal with it. Well, there's always going to be turnover in every organization at any employee level, right? But if they're that important, then should we accept what's going on? Absolutely not. How do we continually reinforce their value, not only up to your level in the board, but to them on a daily basis? Maybe then it's a good way, a good segue here to talk about AI in more of a modern
Mm.
context here. How it impacts the contact center, how you see it impacting the agent experience, the customer experience, everything. That's a big question too to cover, but if you wouldn't mind taking a crack at that.
Sure. So I would say one of the biggest mistakes that is going on right now with AI clearly is like the shiny object syndrome. Like people are chasing after every potential application, thinking it's going to have a major impact on every aspect of their business. But if you focus in on one problem that you're trying to solve, and then you go in that direction and you really hone in on it, I do see that it will have a major, major impact. I'm really excited to see where it goes. It's still a little bit early and there's a lot of SaaS platforms out there that are, oh, we've got it all figured out. No, no, no. It's developing every single day. I think another missed opportunity is that nobody's really taking the time to explain to the agents what your intentions are. What do you want to use this tool for? Why are you using this tool? Is this going to affect me, the agent? Is it going to be a good effect or a bad effect? Good example. Let's say you want to do auto QA using AI. It's not perfect, but it's definitely got a lot of potential, a lot of promise. The agents didn't understand what was happening. Why do you need this? Why is this thing overlaying everything I do? You have to do that. It needs to learn. But when we explained to the agents that we just wanted to use this tool to remove the manual processes that a human was doing, which really didn't give a huge return to the business. But if you can flip that and explain it to the agent that, listen, yes, initially we're going to use this for auto QA, but ultimately we can then take our findings from that and provide you with pop ups to give you the script right then and there. You don't have to go searching for that knowledge base article because if we understand where you're getting hooked up in the conversation with the customer or with the chat or whatever, then we can give you the tools to elevate your work, make it easier for you as well. You'll probably get some buy in. The agents don't understand. If you talk to any agents, they will be confused. They don't know what it is. They see it as chat GPT and bot, just clickety clack, taking away their chats so that they're not going to get those chats anymore. But if you can explain it to them that you're going to use this to enhance their training, you'll be able to see really quickly, oh, wow, I had 25% of my agents all got marked off on this particular type of interaction. What are they missing? Is the article lacking? Is the script lacking? Is the training lacking? And every little improvement you make helps with your average handle time. So even though you're pouring money in, ultimately that will return not only with better interactions for the customers, but you'll have better retention with the agents because they'll feel supported. They'll feel like they have a voice and they have a cheerleader in the background. It's hard to explain it that way, but that's my position.
Well, you mentioned something just a minute or so ago about some testing that you were done. And I know that you actually got published for some of these results. Can you tell us without revealing anything proprietary or anything like that? But what was it that you were testing and give us an idea of the results and what you learned most importantly about that?
Sure. Well, we didn't get credit for it, but the articles were published. And if you read through the summaries of the interactions, you can pretty quickly tell what company they were testing. But some of the things that we learned were AI really has a hard time determining small talk. And when agents are trying to build that bond and that connection, it's really like it doesn't get it. It just sees it as filler words and buffering and stalling, but it doesn't understand that's a huge value. You may only talk to that customer once or twice a year. Don't you want to exchange one or two quick pleasantries? You don't want to drag it on and hear about their entire family tree, but to exchange a pleasantry or even know how to exchange a pleasantry, that's a gap. Some of the use cases we really wanted to do were auto QA, right? I want to free up my team to actually look at those interactions that could make a huge difference in our business. For example, like if we had a new product coming out, I want them to focus on that. Let's put everything else through AI. Let's assume it's going to do its job and give us a pretty good sampling of good, bad, and ugly. And where do we need to focus? So that would be a great use case. We were able to get some stuff there. One of the other really great use cases that we were super fixated on because we were under the gun to get this done was to generate a summary at the end of the interaction without the agent having to sit there and go, customer said this, I did this, customer said this, and the case is resolved, or the case wasn't resolved. You're probably eliminating a minute, 2 minutes off of your after call work. So that helps the agent because then they can beef up their volume if they so choose. Not all of them choose, but it also gives me a mountain of data. And you can just literally feed this back through the machine over and over, looking for those little needles in the haystack that would be impossible for 3 or 4 person QA analyst team to find. They're going to do 3% of all of the interactions per month because that's the max that they can do. And that's it. So what happens to the other 97% of the interactions? If you could use, let's just call it AI or the machine, whatever you want to call it, to skim the surface and pop out those really troublesome interactions to not only train to correct and support the agents and provide that really deep coaching and understanding. Because listen, I know it's not easy to deal with customers who are screaming and yelling at you. But then conversely, if you look at yourself and say that article sucks, no wonder why all of my customers are contacting me for this. The article is just generic. It doesn't tell the customer what they actually need to know, and it forces them to contact us. Those are the two biggest, I would say, biggest immediate use cases, but there's a ton of others that I'm so interested in. I can't wait to see what happens with IVRs. Huge opportunity. Imagine if the customer speaks one word, refund, and then the IVR automatically knows, ships it over to the super trained up team who knows every single thing about refunds to handle that customer versus going into the pool of agents. And then you can also take your most difficult and problematic interactions, like for all businesses deal with fraud. No customer is ever going to come out happy at the end of a fraud interaction. So you probably want to make sure that A, those get popped to the top. They don't sit on hold for 20 minutes. They go right to the head of the line and they go to a team who is trained and empowered to resolve those issues versus the customer saying to the first agent, well, this is what the issue is. The agent can't handle it. Okay, I have to escalate you. Hold on. Customer gets transferred again. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I need to check into something. Gets put on hold. Agent has to read through all the notes and try to figure out what's going on with the customer. Wouldn't you like to eliminate that? So, personally, I find it very exciting, but I know in the CX space, you have a very mixed bag of people who are really excited, like me, and other people who are like, oh man, this might take my job. Like, if I don't harness this and figure out how to use it for my business, I could just get left behind. And I'm seeing that happening right now in the industry. If you don't know or don't understand how you can use AI or any of the chat GPT or any of the applications to your benefit, it's going to be problematic. Wait 6 months and you'll be left in the dust. So my advice, start attending those webinars, start listening to the podcast, figure out how you can use it to benefit not only your company, your customers, but also your agents. Covers everything.
I guess it's motivated, right? And I took away two things from what you're saying there. One is AI is this incredible, really smart traffic cop saying, no, you need to go this way to get to the right places, to get to the right experience, the right outcomes. The second thing was that over time, agents are going to realize that they're not going to go away because there's always going to be people that want to talk to a live agent. There's always going to be things that are too complex, that need to understand things in ways that only the human can, and the empathy thing you said. So those are like huge, huge things. But you also talked about right at the beginning, all of this data that you can analyze,
Yeah.
right? Incredible data that is coming from direct interactions with your customers, whether that's an interaction about a set of problems, interactions about a new product launch that just came out, interactions about everything about your business, harnessing the potential of this and making it easier to look at that bill at the end of the month, right? And understand how it impacts the business overall performance is you've got a continuous opportunity to learn, gain knowledge, and make new decisions that impact the performance of the business. How important is this layer of data that you can analyze that we didn't have in a more of an analog kind of a world where we were just having agents typing up afterwards call summaries? They're going to tend to say a lot of the same things over because it's easier that way. So it gets blanderized. So having AI take that over, the whole ability to analyze, how important is that?
I think it's critical. Listen, you don't have to use every bit of data that you get, but wouldn't it be nice to know in 6 months that, well, maybe we missed a trend. Let me go back. I have all of this rich information that I can just then drill down into. So there's no limit. And you can run it through 100 different ways to try and find that bit of information that you're looking for. Like, for example, let's say you launched a new product and everything's going great for a couple of days. And all of a sudden you start seeing some nasty grams on Instagram or Trustpilot or the BBB or whatever the case may be. And you're kind of blindsided, right? You're like, oh my God, I thought everything was great because a human doesn't have the ability to sit and go through 50,000 interactions a week, but use the machine to go through it and to serve up this information to you and say, oh, red flag. I think we have a problem here. I saw 100 contacts in 2 days about this exact issue. And give me a couple of those cases. And then let me then go to my team and say, guys, I think we have an issue here. Let's pull some live calls. Let's start listening to some live calls. Let's look at those chat transcripts and see what's wrong. Did we not give the agents the proper scripting or training? What does the knowledge base article look like? Or is there actually a defect with the product? Did something get through QA? I mean, you test and test and test and test, but sometimes things might slip through. And who's going to know that first? The agents. But if the agents don't have a path to report this information to you, then you have to rely on something else, something quick, AI. Go into it and say, please review 200 chat transcripts from XYZ and serve me 10 cases that need to be reviewed because customers all mentioned this, this, and this. How much time would that save? That's money. And that's also agent frustration. No, agents don't want to get yelled at. They don't want to talk to customers who are upset. They want to talk to those customers who need a little help. Hey, I'm confused. The app, I missed a window. I don't know what to do. Those are amazing opportunities to build that relationship. A lot of these other ones are just complete frustration drivers with customers because a lot of times agents don't even have the right answer or they haven't been given the proper empowerment to use their brain and solve the issue outside of the box. Okay, customer says this. This is what the script says. It didn't work. But I talked to a customer 10 minutes ago and they had the same thing and this worked. So even though it's not on the script, I'm going to tell them to do this. Empower them. Trust them a little. I'm big on trust, but verify.
It was Fort Worcester that raised one of the money being left on the table was the issue of managers trusting agents. Is exactly what you're bringing up here right now. It brings me actually to something I wanted to ask in terms of just the overall importance of an agent, because we talked about before we hit the record button that there's big issues with agent turnover in the industry and this acceptable level of underperformance, like massive levels of agent turnover that it's just been around so long that it's kind of like we could all say that's just the case, right? But it's extremely high. If you could put on a scale from 1 to 10, how important that agent turnover factor is, since we're talking about overall impact on company performance, how important is agent turnover to overall company performance on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'm not going to give it a 10. Let's see, it's an 8, and I'll tell you why. Time to efficacy is a huge thing that companies do not look at. Oh, great. We can hire a batch. We'll get them in training in 2 weeks, and then they'll hit the floor in 2 weeks. But that doesn't mean that they're effective. They're still leaning on the scripts. They're not going quickly. They're probably frustrating the customers because they might be hemming and hawing a bit. So, yeah, even though stated time to efficacy may be 6 weeks or 7 weeks, whatever, every company is different. It's really not. Why don't you add another 50% to that? Because you and I both know I have been in the contact centers when agents are getting trained and the looks of, oh my God, I got my first call about this. And they're in panic mode because they're still trying to figure out what sounds right. What am I going to say to a customer that's going to get them to take it down a few notches? And trust me that I can actually help them solve their question. So again, it goes back to trust, verify with the agents. That turnover factor, it does a bunch of things. It ties up your trainers. It causes a ton of frustration and concern with their coworkers. Let's say you are a tenured agent, and because you're doing such a great job, you always get stuck on the trainee bay. You put your heart and your soul into these agents, and after 8 weeks, they're gone. And then guess what? In 2 weeks, you got to do it again and again and again. If I'm that agent, I'm wondering, what is it that they're missing? What is wrong? What are we not telling the agents when they're going through the training? Maybe I can help. One of my former roles, I had a really, really very bad problem with turnover. The building that my team was located in was essentially, it's in downtown Manila. It's a very tall building, and every single floor was a different brand of contact center. You got Concentrix, Telex, T-Tech, blah, blah, blah. If they didn't like what was happening on my floor, they check the elevator, they go up one more floor, they put in their application, and they're gone. That's how quick it goes. So if you're not in touch with those agents, you could lose an entire batch of agents, let's say 10, 15 agents in a day. And it happened to me. And I could not understand why. Nobody was telling me the truth. I couldn't get to the bottom line why the agents were so exasperated with us, my company, that they were just going to walk out. How could they do that to me? Like I was almost taking it personally. I started digging in and I happened to be connected with a couple of them in a Facebook group or what I don't remember what it was for. It was probably for customer service week. We created this whole Facebook group of people who were going to work on it. And I started really asking them, what is the actual problem? Why are you guys leaving? It can't be for 5 cents an hour. Like, yes, that is common, right? A couple more dollars a week, that might make a big difference to some people. But what I found out when I was listening and I was open to the feedback was that they were frustrated because our scripts really limited them as to how they could explain things to customers. And if they used the first script and it didn't work, they had to use the second script and the third. And if they didn't follow this exact process, tick, you just lost 10 points. And the frustration was like, listen, we already know that the third script is going to fix it. Why are you making us read script one and script two? You're not listening to us. We're telling you we can fix it quicker. I made a commitment to them right then and there. Listen, we're going to do a trial. So we created this small team, 15 agents, and we let them completely go off script. If you know what the customer is asking and you know how to solve it, and you don't need to read script one and script two just to tick the box, yes, I did this, this, and this, go to script three. I won't penalize you for that. And I will tell you one thing, I had zero turnover on that team. They were the most proud team. They would go out to the Starbucks break room down in the little cafe, and they were recruiting for me. And I didn't have to do a single thing except empower them to do what they knew how to do. So that for me was a huge lesson. Listen to your agents. They know. They know where all the bodies are buried. They know all the tricks of the trade. They know how to calm an upset customer. They know how to get customers off the phone quickly when they know it's a dead end. They know how to wrap it up. Why am I going to penalize them for that? I shouldn't. That to me should be a successful interaction. Customer got what they needed. Customer went on their merry way. I just saved 4 minutes of average handle time. Bonus. So I try to always do that. I'm not perfect. You get wrapped up in things and sometimes you forget to listen. But I always try to remind myself to remain humble and listen to the agents. It doesn't always feel good to hear, wow, I gave them a crappy script. How could I have done that? I didn't mean to do that. Like, oh, I didn't give them a proper knowledge based article. Okay, I didn't do the right thing the first time, but I'll learn from it and I won't ever do that again.
You went from they're all going to leave to now they're recruiting on my behalf.
They're recruiting for me. We created this special little jacket for them and they were so proud. In the Philippines, Starbucks is pretty much everywhere. They would go down to Starbucks wearing their members only jackets, we called them, and people would be like, where did you get that jacket? Oh my God, I want that jacket. We're getting agents flooding in, filling in applications because they want to be part of that team. So it's little things like that. You don't know it coming out of contact center school, but you figure it out over time. And by the way, agents love swag, any swag. You want to give them a lanyard, a pin, a button, a sticker, and they're really happy. They love swag.
Here's my overall question on that. You went from teams that were like literally deserting you to teams that
Yeah.
were recruiting you.
Yeah.
How does that impact company performance? Because that's where we started this section, right? Like we get to the bottom line because now you're not telling that just on a podcast. You're revealing that in a board meeting, right? You're talking about that for a very specific reason.
Being honest counts for something. Like, I am not perfect. And by the way, there was no AI, no fancy computer. Like, you have to use your intuition a little bit and your experience and to come humbly admit, hey, we really missed something here. Not only did I miss it and my whole team missed it, but my BPO partner missed it. They didn't tell me. Why do I need to do that? My BPO partner really needs to be doing that for me as well. So I have learned over many, many years, trial, error, etc. If you do not have a trusting working relationship with your BPO partner, you're flying blind. You're trusting, but you have no way to verify. When things go wrong, you are the one left holding the bag because the BPO partner is doing what they're contractually obliged to do. They're meeting their handle time, their service levels, their volumes, and all this and that. But there's a lot of subtleties that come with that relationship, that trust, where they can call you and expose something that's going on in the contact center, knowing that you're not going to kick them in the butt and say, okay, that's one strike against you. You have to have that trusting, like back and forth and willingness to admit, hey, this batch that we hired, we did not use the right profile. These agents are not good on the phone. Something went wrong with the hiring crew. We've already talked to them. We've looked at the applications. We've refined our hiring profile. So this shouldn't happen in the future batches. Instead, you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I just lost 15 agents. Do you know what actually losing 15 agents costs versus a couple of seconds of handle time? It's very expensive. And in the end of the day, ruins your reputation. It erodes your trust with the BPO partner. I mean, if that happened to me multiple times, I would 100% be questioning my relationship with this BPO. Wow, we've been partners for a while. Something's wrong over there. There's new management, and quickly the blame goes to the leadership team. It's not on the agents anymore. Agents are scot free. Now I'm looking at the directors and the VP. I'm looking at the recruiters. I'm looking well beyond my lovely agent who's sitting there and doing their best to try and help my customer.
You know, what I want to do is you very eloquently talked about how important the agents are, trust in the agents, trust in your BPO partners, right? And what that can do, that will ruin you if you have agents walking out on you. It will increase the performance, every metric that is important if you have that team that's dedicated to you. You went through, and I said, we first got online here today. I said, this is going to be my favorite part of the podcast. We haven't even gotten to it yet because you talk about this concept of focusing on the middle customer because that's where the greatest revenue gains can come from. Can you explain what that middle customer is?
Sure. So you can view this as middle customers, meaning a consumer who used your product or bought something from you, who are just like, I'll give you a 7. Well, that really sucks because I needed that 8 in order to get you into the promoter category. But what would it have taken really to get that customer to an 8? Maybe getting off the phone quicker with an agent, or maybe servicing a chat widget in more places, making it much easier for a consumer to ask a quick question and not even have to interact fully. Maybe it's looking at your bot and they didn't ever get to a human being. And maybe those are the customers that we do want to talk to a human being. So don't give any of those to the bot. But then also you can do it in the other direction and look at those middle customers as your middle performer agents or your middle engaged agents. They gave you a 6 on the engagement survey. Oh, they don't have enough ask me anythings, or we don't get swag. They don't talk to us. They don't listen to us. What would it take really to invest an hour of 4 or 5 leaders of your company to sit on and ask me anything and let the agents pelt questions at you? Really, what's the harm in it? And then all of a sudden, you have agents who feel engaged and listened to and trusted and valued because I listened to what they said to me. And now do one step further. Not only tell them that you heard what they said, but prove it to them by making the changes. Doesn't have to be overnight. And some of them can be done. But if they're giving you valid points, like, you know what? Our tool sucks. I get logged out every 30 minutes. Do you know what a pain in the neck it is to be in the middle of an interaction? And because of our security protocol, I'm getting logged out every 30 minutes. This happened at one of my previous roles. We didn't know. How are we going to know? We're not sitting in the agent's shoes. I'm not using Aircall and Zendesk and all. I don't have 20 windows open, but the agents do. And they're all getting logged out. They're trying to help a customer. They go to use the tool. Oh my God, I'm logged out again. I didn't know. We fixed that right away. The agents felt so proud. They provided us with this little bit of information that drastically improved their work life. It improved the customers, saved handle time for me at the end of the day on my bill. And I guess those customers were probably leaving a little more satisfied. So that is really about focusing on those middle people. What can I do? That one little extra push that I can do to get them over the line that they're going to give me that good score. If the opportunity presents it, they're going to either write a nice review or they're going to talk to their friends about, wow, I'm using this product. It's amazing. Check it out.
So the takeaway really is that this middle customer segment is the largest
Huge,
segment.
untapped.
See, now explain that.
Nobody cares. I've tried this many, many times. Nobody wants to hear what those middle people are talking about. They want to hear those ones and twos, the detractors. They want to hear the complaints. They want to hear the verbatims. How can we fix it? And then they want to go right up to the top. What are those 10 things? Because I want to feel good about myself today. But nobody's asking, hey, can you send me 25 and 6 ratings? I just want to read what they're saying. Nobody cares. Like that would be probably the least exciting white paper ever. But I don't view it that way. I view it as like a huge pool. And they're probably the customers who send in the most number of surveys. They took that time. They want to love you, but it was okay. That's what I mean by those middle customers. It's a huge opportunity and nobody's really getting involved with them at this point. Too bad.
It's amazing, right? Because bottom line, we're all in business. We're in business to show a return. We need to show a return. Ultimately, that's what the board wants. That's what the CEO wants. That's what the whole C-suite wants, right? It's what everybody needs to do. And here you've got this biggest revenue opportunity. And because it isn't exciting, because it's not talking to the best promoters or turning the worst, right? It's the people, the average in the middle, but that's where the opportunity lies. I love the way that I call it reframing the conversation because what you've done is you've said, no, this is an area that we can't afford not to focus on as a business.
Everybody wants to be a superstar. Everybody wants to be a Zappos or a Chewy. I have a ton of favorites, but in reality, we all have products or services or whatever. They're not always perfect. We want them to be, but it's all in the eyes of the customer. In reality, you also spent a lot of money in CAC trying to bring that customer on board. Wouldn't it be great if you could turn that middle of the road customer? No, you know what? Next time I'm going to use Visa instead of MasterCard. Wouldn't it be great to just put a little bit of effort refining whatever is happening in those interactions to get those customers into that top bucket? I think it's very worthwhile.
Lauren, we've talked about so many important things here on this podcast. If there was a single takeaway that you have that you want to leave everybody with, what would that be?
I would say listen to your customers and your agents and be humble. We're not always perfect. And if you are going into things thinking that you're launching the most perfect product in the world, you are kidding yourself. There are always bodies that are buried, and just do your best by the customers, do your best by the agents, give them the tools to make their job frictionless, give the customers self help options. Because, by the way, I'll leave this with you. I would rather cut off my hand before I pick up the phone and call for help. I will search the help center far and wide before I personally would want to call somebody. So I know there's a lot of people like me out there, but I'm also very honest on my surveys and I will give feedback. And that is a gift. And it's free. Take it. You don't have to do anything with it, but take it. Take it in and listen to it. And a lot of times you'll realize 6 months down the line, wow, we did see this trend and we didn't have the bandwidth to do anything with it then. And now we're really in a big bucket of, you know what, we got to fix this right now. But if you picked up on those little things as time was accumulating and tried to cross them off one by one, you wouldn't be in that big bucket at the end of the month. You would be like, okay, we had these issues and we've done A, B, and C, and the rest is on sprint 12. We're getting to it and share it with the agents. Talk to the agents.
If there were folks that had additional questions for you on all these things we've been talking about here today, would it be appropriate to give them maybe a link to your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, sure. I get LinkedIn constantly. And the ones that I respond to are people who are not trying to sell me something. If you want me to collaborate with you, that's different. So yeah, hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll be happy to collaborate or help in any way I can.
Well, fantastic.
Thank you. This
Megan,
was fun. I love talking about this stuff.